Lovely Lesthia Louboutina. Hello. And I have very belatedly sat down at the sociable time of 0500 in order to read you some of this. And I am sorry for the delay. I'm sure you know by now that I do things, well, according to a schedule that is not reliable. And when I promise something, I do mean it, and I probably will do it at some point, but yeah, basically don't believe me, ever. I'm sure you know that by now. Right, so having discussed it with you at length, we are going to go for the haute couture section. Well, there's not really a section. God, there is a lot. There is a lot about fetishes and what else? Fantasy. Fashion is fantasy. Couture and the designer. Actually, what really interests me, and I promise this is true, even more so than the section on fetishism, is a chapter called The Crucial Ambiguity of the Image, Clothes and Identity. I like ambiguity. I think it's an important and fertile area. I haven't read it. What this person, what Judith Watt, W-A-T-T, says. A chapter here. The British hate fashion. Well, I am living proof of that, because at the moment I am I don't know what I'm wearing. I'm wearing well, for a start, it's a hoodie. That is just in case I need to go outside for a cigarette in the cold. I'll try not to go outside for a cigarette while I'm talking to you. That would be rude. And as an underlayer, a Pittsburgh Steelers shirt, which has actually been on for a couple of days. I really should. I'm sorry, you don't need to know that. So not only do we hate fashion, we hate hygiene. That's a generalisation, of course, because not every British person is like me, and we would be in trouble if we all were. Okay, hang on. So yeah, the chapter we were going to tackle. Fashion is fantasy. Couture and the designer. So that's page 75. Oh yeah, this is definitely right. And it starts with a quote from your friend and mine, Coco. Coco Chanel. Oh, it's not, sorry. It's not a quote from her. It's from a book about her called Chanel and Her World. Oh God, I'm dopey. Yes, and it is something she said, apparently. I don't know this. Fashion is, at the same time, both caterpillar and butterfly. Be a caterpillar by day and a butterfly by night. Nothing could be more comfortable than a caterpillar, and nothing more made for love than a butterfly. There must be dresses that crawl, and dresses that fly. The butterfly does not go to the market, and the caterpillar does not go to the ball. Well, what's that thing called where you treat animals as human beings, or as you think that animals have the same nature as human beings? Anthropomorphism? Yeah, anthropomorphism. It's when you imagine that your dog or your cat, like your cat who likes the computer, is really a human being. So I guess Chanel's suggesting the opposite there, that we are, we humans, when we dress, ought to be a little bit more like animals in our instincts. There is a word for that. I think the word is zoomorphic, like anthropomorphic, but with Z-O-O instead of anthro. I don't know. Is this important? It's not a word I see very often, or not a word I use very often, ever. And if you've put up with that, there is in fact a second quote here before the chapter starts. It's a quote from a book called Cold Comfort Farm, which is a novel, an English novel, reasonably famous, by Stella Gibbons, Gibbons. I wonder if she's a real gibbon. That's anthropomorphic, isn't it? Stella Gibbons the gibbon. Right, shut up, John. Well, do you like your dress? She asked Elphine, as they sat at lunch in the New River Club. It's heavenly, said Elphine solemnly. She, like Madame Solide, was pale with exhaustion. It's better than poetry, Flora. Okay, and now the text by Judith Watt. The story of 20th century fashion is the story of the designer. The establishment of the couturier at its start, and the power of haute couture and the designer label at its end. It was an Englishman, Charles Frederick Worth, W-O-R-T-H, who was the first couturier who dictated to the client in 19th century Paris. It is an Englishman, John Galliano, who has re-established the role of haute couture in international fashion at Christian Dior in the late 1990s. Between Worth and Galliano, Paris has seen enormously powerful women designers holding sway over their male counterparts in the so-called golden age of couture between the wars. This chapter looks at these women, in particular Coco Chanel and Elsa Schiaparelli, and at Paul Poiret, Christian Dior and Cristobal Balenciaga, and the ways in which they have been written about by journalists and novelists, such as Nancy Mitford and Angela Carter. And you are not going mad. I think I made a mess of one of those sentences in terms of grammar. I don't think it was... Oh, yeah. I didn't. I just wasn't reading very fluently. I'm not. I'm quite tired and dopey. So I'm sorry, and please ignore my mistakes if you can. Let's carry on now, otherwise I'll never read anything. At the start of the century, Doucet, the Calosseur, Paquin, and Worth were the most powerful couture houses in Paris, though garments produced by these houses were often still a collaboration between client and designer. Paul Poiret trained under Jacques Doucet and understood the importance of personality and publicity for the couturier. Artists were becoming stars. Why not couturiers? In 1908, Poiret launched his Directoire line, in which the constricting S-bend corset that transformed the body through tight lacing was abandoned, and had his work illustrated in a deluxe album of drawings by Paul Iribe. Les Robes de Paul Poiret presented the work of the couturier at its most desirable, moving on from the tradition of fashion illustration, which concentrated on factual detail, and communicating instead the modern spirit of dress. The 20th century notion of couturier as dictator of style and artist was born, and the soft pastel colours, the lace and chiffon that characterized Belle Époque style of the early years of the century were replaced with bold colour and embroidery, as Poiret played potentate, reflecting contemporary Orientalism inspired by Diaghilev's Ballet Russe. However, style is a social phenomenon and reflects changing social ideologies. Poiret became fixed in his personal taste for grand gesture and ornamentation, and the appeal of his work failed to survive the transition of contemporary tastes to modernism and simplicity in design. His successor, Gabrielle Coco Chanel, could not have been more different. Her cult of the personality of the couturier was similar, but she understood the changing aesthetic of fashion, and she understood modern women. Her work personified modernism, and the rejection of ornamentation, called for by architect and theorist Adolphe Loos, L-O-O-S, unfortunate name, in 1908. Cultural evolution is equivalent to the removal of ornament from articles of everyday use. Chanel opened a sportswear boutique in Biarritz in 1916 and designed the first modern clothes for women in beige lock-knit and grey flannel. I don't know what lock-knit is. I'm guessing that you will know. Lock-knit. Must be obviously a fabric, of probably a woolen fabric of some sort. I don't know. Sweaters, jersey dresses, and suits in the male tradition of the dandy, whose uniform of black clothes and white linen had challenged the notion of fashion as ostentatious display. Her power as couturier, she charged 7,000 francs for a radically simple dress, is demonstrated by the success of her little black dress, which Vogue described as A fashion Ford, i.e. Ford, the same as the car, in 1926. Others designed black dresses, but it was Chanel who made the black dress fashionable. And Lesthia. I know I am not reading well at the moment. My mouth is not really responding to the words, so I'm making a mess of sentences and the words. It's probably just tiredness. I hope it's tiredness and nothing up here. Who knows? So I'll leave that there. That's really interesting. Actually, really is interesting. Another good reason to stop is that I hope I am not reading too quickly. So please just let me know if that was okay, too slow, too fast. Be honest, I don't mind. I'll change it for the next reading. But God, that is so interesting. And I want to continue with that. Okay, I'll shut up now. Have a brilliant day and stay stylish. Bye!